Hey, good morning, my friends in Rotunda West, Cape Hayes, Windward, Inglewood, Venice. Meteorologist Mark Torregrossa here. I own farmerweather.com, have for 20 years. Meteorologist since 1989. And chief meteorologist of a website called MLive. You see that in the backdrop. I'm in my home studio here in Michigan. So I'm going to give you some updates. Now, I first want to preface you. First off, sit back and get a cup of coffee because we've got a lot to talk about. I'm going to give you some good stuff. I'm going to give you some positive things that keep you from escalating your worry all day, depending on where you're at. Okay. So you're going to get the whole guts of it. I'm going to shut up and let's get to it. I do want to emphasize follow what the local officials are doing. I know most of the people that are getting this video, but you're sharing it also. So if you're, I'm gonna ride it out in the storm surge zone. No, I can't advise that at all. But I'm gonna give you my commentary on what's going on with this hurricane with the data I have at 7:57 this morning, and I will tell you some things. I am going to tell you some things that the government, the National Weather Service, the National Hurricane Center can't tell you because they got to get people to get out of the way. And if they start to show a couple of these positives things, then some people say, oh, you know what? Maybe I won't go anywhere. So I'm going to leave you positives. Let me just give you a little story. Last night, we were driving north to our cabin here in Traverse City, and people started texting my wife, and I'm driving. She's like, uh-oh, they just sent me the new update of these tracks. They shifted south. The eye is coming right over our house, our someday retirement dream home, Rotunda West. I said, oh boy, okay. She starts to worry. We get here. I said, I got to look at everything or I can't sleep. I went through everything thoroughly for a half hour. I said, Rotunda West, Cape Hayes, Windward, our house after the hurricane sturdiness that we've done with Hurricane Ian. I said, we're going to be all right. Let's go to bed. Guess how I slept? I slept like a baby. I was tired because I didn't sleep the last 2 nights, but I slept like a baby. So let's get to it. Here we go. All right, so we got to look at the satellite image. This gives us the reason why we have to look at the satellite image is, like I said, I hope you got your coffee going here. The reason why we have to look at the satellite image is because it gives us 15-minute by 15-minute snapshots. Computer models give us info every 6 hours, or good models every 12 hours. And eventually we'll get models that give us every hour, but we're not there yet. But what we see here, a couple of things. Note where the eye is in relation to the rest of the circulation. A well-tuned hurricane has its eye right in the center. Remember, I've been telling you about this. It's a venting system. It's an engine like your car, and it's got to be symmetric to continue to be a well-tuned. And I do want to emphasize, I'm not going with it's going to evaporate to nothing, no problems, continue on. What I'm saying is this is not an Ian, this is not a Helene in the sense that as it approaches the coast, both of those, every time they were dropping more instruments in and rating the winds and the pressure was going down, winds were going up, scary as a storm increases strength approaching the coast. This one is going to be weakening as it approaches the coast. And in Cape Hayes, Windward, Rotunda West, if the track stays where it's expected now at Bradenton, we're going to be in that rapid taper-off zone. It's going to be a nasty storm. Some places are going to really get clobbered, but there's also some, some things to be positive about. I want to show you one more thing on this, and this is something I'm going to go over with you. This is the water vapor imagery. So where you see the yellow south of Florida, that is the that is dry air at about 10,000 feet up. This is the mid-level water amounts, okay? So obviously in the hurricane, very moist, high humidity, a lot of water vapor. That's the green. Behind it, in the western Gulf of Mexico, very dry air. That's helping us because the trough has finally pushed south into the Gulf of Mexico, western half, and that's steering the eye now northeastward. But notice south of Florida, that's dry air that is going to get entrained into the hurricane. Again, too little too late for some, but it means the machine will be faltering a touch. All right, so we have our newest advisory. Let me get it centered up here for you. Newest advisory as of 8 o'clock. It just came in. Some very important things. And again, I want to emphasize, do you like to listen to, like, say, CNBC when they do the financial commentary on the if the Fed will raise interest rates? Well, they say, oh, the Fed left interest rates alone, but look at this line in their jargon, and look at this line. We're going to look at some lines in the Hurricane Center's jargon. Again, they can't tell us this in mass. They want people to go away 50 or 100 miles. Common sense, yes, and let's get people to do that. So let's go over the update as of 8 o'clock. So it's fresh in. This is 8:02 right now. Winds will begin to increase along the west coast of Florida by this afternoon, obviously. You should be evacuated. So here's a couple of good things. Maximum sustained winds now 155. That doesn't sound good, but it was 160 at the 4 a.m. update. So we're going in the right direction, trying to find some positives. Air pressure, we are going to watch that one considerably. 907 millibars at 4 in the morning, now 915. So the air pressure in the center is rising. That means a weakening storm. Again, still a monster, but a weakening storm. Let's go into some other things here. Okay, so we've watched this. You've watched this with me, and this is something that you don't get a lot of. So, here's their forecast. By the way, still planning on a landfall. Probably not 8 p.m. tonight. Probably midnight. Probably not waiting till 3 a.m. So somewhere between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m., I would say. So their forecast out in the water at 2 p.m. has maximum winds 140 miles an hour, gusts to 170. Terrible. Their forecast at 2 a.m., you see the words inland there. So they're saying that it's a little inland. We'll look at their official position. Maximum winds 120 miles an hour, gusts to 150, 160. Terrible. You know, another thing, a lot of this stuff is scary. When they talk about maximum gusts of 160, it doesn't mean all around the eye. Some sector could have it. Typically, it's just south of the eye with the momentum of the storm. This case, the wind fields are kind of skewed over to the northwest. Maximum winds actually could be over there, but I would say it would be just south of the eye, and that's why Bradenton is going to have extreme damage. Sarasota will probably have a lot of damage. Venice will have a lot of damage. Then the wind taper off starts. So Rotunda West, my friends, we can still pray for a weakening, a shift 10 miles, and we'll go less. I do have, where I'm going with this is Rotunda West Cape Hayes. Currently, my guess. I wrote that on here, the word guess, my guess, so you know it. With the current information, Rotunda West Cape Hayes, some 70 to 90 mile per hour gusts, 3 to 5 inches of rain. That's it. This is going to be another thing that you're going to be surprised at if the eye on the current track heads to Bradenton. Storm surge, probably dry in Cape Hayes is what I have figured out. I'm not a storm surge expert. Inglewood, 70 to 90 mile an hour gusts, possible 100. The farther north you go, the stronger the winds will be. Old Inglewood, storm surge, bad. Locking, I noticed in my notes, I wrote it down with restaurants and bars. So Lock and Key Sandbar, 10 to 15 foot storm surge does extreme damage. That 10 to 15 foot storm surge, how do we know how far that inland that gets? Last storm surge in Helene was, we figure, about 5 feet, and it made it to Old Inglewood Road. That's where the water was, maybe a few inches high. The Moose, probably into the Big Moose in Inglewood, probably into the storm surge. The Eagles, probably into the storm surge. How far? Does it make it to 776? Does it make it east of that? I don't know. Venice, you are 80 to 100 mile an hour gusts easily, maybe 110. North side of Venice, worse than the south side of Venice at the current track. Storm surge, Venice shoreline is different. It ramps up. So you've got the storm surge, obviously, 10 to 15 feet on the shoreline. And your rain starts to pick up in Venice, but you're still probably 3 to 5. And then, of course, Sarasota is into the extreme damage. Let's get back to it. The one thing I want to show you. So inland, the 64 knot or 75 mile an hour steady winds, the hurricane winds, still projected to be about 35 miles around the eye. So put a storm center at Bradenton, go 35 miles south, you're probably somewhere between Sarasota and Venice. And then the winds taper off after that. Again, I'm not saying that we won't have wind, but it will taper off. Okay, so let's get to the models. Oh, no. I got to go back. I'm sorry. We got to give you all of the officials. Okay, discussion, very, very important. Something you are not going to see. And this is something that in the world of freely available weather now, when a friend sends you a new track and you get nervous, you need to go into these discussions and read them. Okay, so I'm going to read it for you. This is a 4 a.m. discussion. We didn't get an 8 a.m. discussion. I want to pick out something. Just a second. Okay, right here. Most important line. The NHC track, National Hurricane Center track forecast, is nudged a little to the north of the previous one to be in better agreement with the latest models. Okay, so they're inching back to the north, and you'll see that track here in just a second. This is very important right here. It should be noted that this forecast is based on the model fields. I'm going to show you those. That's the model output, the pretty pictures we show you, not the interpolated models which appear to be too far south. So the tracks, for some reason, the track lines are farther south than what the models show the eye. I have no idea why. Users are urged to not focus on the exact track landfall point, as the average error at 24 hours is still about 40 miles. And we are using, by the way, models from 8 p.m. last night and 2 a.m. So we're still 24 hours out in data. Also, I want to remind you, thank you, human beings at the National Hurricane Center still the best track forecast. has the lowest average error versus all of the models that we look at. So we do respect highly the National Hurricane Center track. Here it is. Okay, so here is the new track. This is as of 8 a.m. I don't even know if I looked at the 8 a.m. one yet because it's just coming in. All right, so new track. And if you were, before you went to bed, if you were in the panic mode, they had shifted it south some. They've shifted it back. You know, they tell us to ignore the track, but we got to look at the track. We got to look at the track because it's the only way we can really visually get a trend. And they have it on the north side of Sarasota. Now take that 74 mile an hour steady wind. That's a bad wind. That's a steady wind for, an hour or two. That's the hurricane wind, not the gust. And you go 35 miles south, and it's, through Venice. Again, a shift northward, 5 or 10 miles, or a little bit of a reduction in the speed, and there we go. I wanted to take this off so you could actually see where they have the eye coming on shore at the moment. Again, the cone encompasses about 66% of those tracks historically. What else? And you should see this, just so you know what the experts do believe, that the surge will be quite bad. So Rotunda West, Inglewood, Venice, all in the 10 to 15 foot storm surge. That sounds scary, but remember, that's at the shoreline, and it doesn't mean that a wall of water 10 to 15 feet comes in, because you kind of start doing the math and just saying, wow, I'm only 11 feet above the ocean level. So a 15-foot surge would come 4 feet into my house. It doesn't exactly work that way. At Old Inglewood, yes, possibly. At the northeast part of the Rotunda West Circle, no. I'll show you some of that too. And you're evacuated. This is just as you sit in your hotel worrying about if all of your furniture is flooded out. I'm trying to give you some less worry until we know what happens, and what happens is going to happen, right? We know there's only one person in charge of that right now. All right, here we go to the models. Very important. So we're going to start with the European. European is a slow model to come in. We don't have, I'm going to see if I can find some newer stuff from the European, but this is the 0Z run, the 8 p.m. run. Let me get to the wind gusts. I don't like the wind gusts just yet for one reason. Okay, so let me get to, here's the wind field, the steady wind, okay? European has been slower than the GFS. The GFS is, its bias, its shortfall is fast in all weather systems, snowstorms north and hurricanes. So this is 8 p.m. tonight. This is 2 a.m. That is 8 a.m. tomorrow. So the Europeans' evening run says the eye comes into the mouth of Tampa Bay. You'll see the track lines, for whatever reason, are south of that. And that's what the Hurricane Center is talking about. Now we can look at the European in other ways. Let's do look at the wind gust. The reason why I didn't like it is because it doesn't have the wind arrows. So these are the wind gusts, maximum gusts through 8 p.m. Before we get a lot of colors, pick out where Rotunda West is. Okay, you can only do that for yourself. So this is 2 a.m. That would say we're into the brown. That would say 65 knot gusts. That would be 75 miles an hour. Hence my Rotunda West, some 70 to 90 mile an hour gusts. We do have to worry about isolated tornadoes too, but we won't even worry about that because you really can't forecast where any of that would happen. This would be 8 a.m. and we would still be into, we're into the red now to the brown, so we'd still be possibly 65 to 70 mile an hour gusts, 8 a.m. And then the gusts would still be, uncomfortable through midday, 50, occasional 50 mile an hour gust. And gusts, here's the other thing that we have to remember is gusts are short term. Gusts are a minute or two. Then you could have, 15 minutes or half hour to the next gust. Again, terrible storm. Our area is going to have a lot of damage. But I'm just trying to give you some of the things that might take the fright out a little bit. And the main thing is, if you're out of there, if you've evacuated, we'll be all right. Okay, so that's the European. Bear with me a second. I want to see if I can grab the newest European. I won't be able to. Yeah, let's see. Okay. All right, good. This is the 6Z. This is actually newer. This is a 6 hour. So this would be like 2 in the morning is when the model ran. So I should have showed you this all along. So this is 6. Has new data. And let's see what it does. We are looking at the wind gusts. And note that the wind field on this is much smaller, much farther to the north. I would still call this 70 to 90 mile an hour gusts in Rotunda West, based on the later European run. But I would say the 90 might be a shot in the dark. Okay, well, let's get into it a little more. I guess I shouldn't talk. So, hold on a second. We also own a business, so we get calls early in the morning. Thanks for staying with me. This is meteorologist Mark Torregrossa from farmerweather.com, mlive.com, chief meteorologist. I'm on my own here, meteorologist, 35 years. So this is 6 a.m. Thursday. So the European latest says it's slowed down a little bit. It does, and it shows that weakening. Note what it looks like at what we call the initialization. This is when the model started. Note what the wind field looks like. Fairly symmetric. Remember I talked about the dry air starts to work on it. It wobbles. Note that it still looks very healthy, so to speak, but breaking down. Maybe we can see that trend. And it's a little farther north. We don't have a close up, but I want to say that it's shifted it farther north. Hey, let's go see if we can find. I don't think we get. No, we're not going to be able to get any of the other features of that run. Okay, so here's the maximum wind gust off of the 8 p.m. run. We don't get this kind of output from the 6Z run. There you can see, that's my 70 to 90, and that's my Sarasota, at up to Sarasota, probably up to 120, 130 mile an hour gusts. So you're going to see a lot of difference in damage as you go northward if the eye stays the same. All right, now the GFS, the US model. This is the 2 in the morning run. This is the latest that we have. The US model, and we are looking at wind gusts. US model has a bigger wind field. It's faster. This would be 10 p.m. tonight. So the European is 3 to 6 in the morning. Somewhat smaller wind field. This would be, these would be 80, 90 mile an hour gusts. Rotunda west. South wind going to west. And again, the GFS, its pitfall is that it's fast. So, we take it to 8 in the morning and we're down to occasional 40 mile an hour gusts. All right, now the specific hurricane models. So the models that I show you, we've got a ton of models. The models I show you are the 4 best. European model, probably still the best, maybe not on the exact wind field, but the timing, the location, probably is still best at this point. GFS, a good model, and then these 2 regional hurricane models. And so here we go with the regional hurricane models. This would be a 2 in the morning run. Wind gust, surface wind gust. A lot of toggling here. Okay, and again, I think the important thing is to look at the initialization, the right at 2 a.m. Notice the wind field concentric around the storm. It's a monster. And as you'll see, as we get to afternoon and evening, the wind field is expected to fan out. So this is that regional model, 8 p.m., and it starts to do 75 mile an hour gusts at Rotunda West out of the southeast. Then it starts to falter, 11 p.m., and it has a lot of strong wind off the coast, and then 2 a.m. So again, this one says 70 to 90 mile an hour gusts, and it says that by 11 tomorrow morning, we're really down to just uncomfortable gusts. We get a version B. Let's focus on where version B seemed to have had a bigger wind field. This is 11 at night. So version B brings the eye. It has been farther south. It brings the eye on shore at about Sarasota. Okay, so one thing you should get out of this is there is not a trend for, on the latest, there is not a trend for the eye to be shifting south. You may hear that, but they're using old information if you do hear that. What I want to show you, let's see, what do I have next? Okay. All right, we're going to go to this. So here are all the latest models, the various tracks. And remember I told you that the National Hurricane Center says these tracks are too far south compared to wind field. So I just showed you the wind field. I showed you where the eye is coming toward at the moment. Bradenton, Sarasota. All the tracks of these models are to the south. I'm going to just toggle the official track. I'm toggling it on and off. Hopefully you can see it. You see the light blue? It's up to between Sarasota and Bradenton. Again, they don't want us to focus on the exact location, But guess what? We have to focus on the exact location so we can see what the overall trend is. So in other words, if somebody is showing you raw model data and you're looking at that on Facebook, you're going, oh boy, and you're not getting the full picture. So now some of the things that will work on this storm to create a different environment than Ian and Helene when those were both intensifying as they hit the shoreline, as this one should be weakening. One of the main things I showed you in the water vapor, the dry air. So here we are back to the model. And what you're looking at is the relative humidity, bear with me, the relative humidity at 10,000 feet up, mid-levels of the atmosphere. Imagine a hurricane. Imagine a hurricane wants as much moisture as it can get. And then you inject some dry air into it. It's going to falter some. It's not going to go from 160 mile an hour gusts down to 80, but it's going to falter some. So note that this is the way the relative humidity field was at 2 a.m. Note the dryness across Cuba, arcing up into ahead of the storm. Those brown colors are relative humidities of 30%. That's dry air. Hurricanes don't like that. It's going to start to work on it. Too little, too late. Last minute. This is going to be a nail biter. This is 2 p.m. I like that look. Note that the curl of somewhat drier air is coming up into the hurricane. This is 5 o'clock. This is 8 o'clock. I love that look. Too little, too late. It's doing something. It's some optimism. It means if we're going to pray, we pray for a lot of dry air to get in there and for it to weaken even more. And then this is at 11 o'clock with the eye. I'll show this, and here's the second thing. We've talked about wind shear. So there's a jet stream just to the north, and hurricanes do not like that. In fact, look at, well, I can't show this on this perspective, but there's a lot of wind for a hurricane to remain very put together, I guess is what we want to say. And here is the Europeans' relative humidity forecast. So this is 2 p.m. this afternoon. Note that area of dry air west of the Keys feeding up into the circulation. I love this, 8 o'clock. I mean, I wish we could do this kind of look with dry air at now. But we're getting at least some in there. Actually, I'm giving it to you all. You can, go off this video when you got to do something, come back or never come back. But what we're seeing is a really bizarre situation in that the Hurricane Center has talked about this. We're seeing some enhancement from the front, a surface front, and the upper level winds. This hurricane, I joked, and it's probably a terrible joke at this time, but it's a good analogy in what's going on in the world. The hurricane is going through a sex change. I'm joking. It's going from a tropical system to a non-tropical system, and you can kind of get a feel for that on this, and it hurts and helps. I don't know if you remember Hurricane Sandy years ago hit the Northeast, and then we had to go back and rename it Superstorm Sandy because meteorologists got an argument. It was a hurricane, and then all of a sudden it started showing like nor'easter type storm characteristics. So was it a hurricane when it hit New York City, or was it a nor'easter? And they came back and said, let's call it a hybrid. That's almost what this is doing, is it's transitioning from a hurricane to a kind of a hybrid type system. Last things, let's go over the surge. And I think I have this figured out on how to explain it to you. Are you still hanging in there? I hope so. Meteorologist Mark Torregrossa here. I'm going to keep you updated. I live in Cape Hayes Windward, so I'm watching it very closely. Also, we're going to be all right. If you are in Rotunda West or Cape Hayes or Inglewood Inland, you're going to be all right. If you have a new roof that's attached better, you're going to be all right. On the shoreline, some of the trailer parks that you drive by going to, say, the Lighthouse Grill or to Sandbar or Lock and Key, you say, wow, that'd be really cool to be that close. They must have got those for a steal back in the 50s, and those are going to be damaged considerably. So what we're going to look at is the chance of a certain level of surge. And by the way, most of us in Rotunda West probably have a elevation on our main floor of 11.5 feet. Some of you might be higher as they made the newer homes build it up. But I know most of the people that are watching this, and 11.5 feet is a good level to talk about. So what you are seeing here is the 50% chance that a certain level of surge will happen. I got to scoot it a little bit so I can get the legend in there. Let's see. I don't know if I'll be able to get the legend in there for you. Probably not. And still have the data that I want. No, I'm not going to be able to. All right. So this is a 50% chance. So the light green, Manasota Key, Gasparilla Island, the immediate shoreline, has a 50% chance of a 7 to 9 foot storm surge. Then we go to a kind of like a light blue, almost with a purplish hue. That is a 50% chance of a 5 to 7 foot storm surge. Then we go to the bright blue. It's basically in the southeast quarter of Rotunda West Circle. That is a 50% chance of a 3 to 5 foot storm surge. So in my mind, if your house is 11 feet up, 3 to 5 foot storm surge, you don't get wet. You probably don't even get water in your yard. Note for my friends right in my neighborhood, also note that the northwest or the northeast 2/3 of Rotunda West Circle and north into Inglewood, 50% chance of no storm surge. But let me zoom in. Cape Hayes Windward, very interesting. I think we're going to do okay. See that dark blue along Cape Hayes Drive to the west of Coral Creek? That is less, the dark blue is less than a 3 foot storm surge. 50% chance of less than a 50% storm surge. I'm going to stick right here with my neighbors. Okay, now let's go to a 30% chance. So a 30% chance, you're going to have obviously a higher number. So 30% chance. We're looking, let's again go down Cape Hayes Drive. You see that fuzzy light blue on Cape Hayes Drive? They have it as a 30% chance of a 5 to 7 foot storm surge. 30% chance. Do you go golfing when there's a 30% chance? You probably do, because you say there's a 70% chance that it won't happen. Now, outside of that, the light green in a lot of the area is a 30% chance of a 7 to 9 foot storm surge. That would be significant. Placido Road westward, 30% chance of a 9 to 11 foot storm surge. So now when you start to get to the 9 to 11, you start to come inland quite a bit. And let's back out. So this is the 30% chance of exceedance. So again, the northeastern part of Rotunda West Circle has a 30% chance of a 3 to 5 foot storm surge in places, 30% chance of a 3 foot or less storm surge. That would not make things wet if you're 11, 12 feet above sea level. And then northern part of Rotunda Circle and into northern parts of Inglewood, no chance, or a 30% chance of no storm surge. And one last thing, 10% chance. Okay, 10% chance. So all of a sudden, everything shows some sort of storm surge. 10% chance of a 15 to 17 foot storm surge on Manasota Key. Obviously that's devastating. It's 10% chance, and that's if the wind field of the storm is growing in intensity and does exactly everything it can to make a storm surge. And from what I've shown you, that won't happen. We probably better take the 50% chance. Now, here's the problem. They show the 10% chance. That's the map we're seeing. That's the forecast, the 10% chance. Stands to reason, government trying to be very protective of us. Thank you. Stands to reason. But you might be sitting there at home very worried. And hopefully you're getting a couple of things out of this that get you through the day. That's what we're going to do. The storm is going to do what it's going to do, right? What do I know is going to happen? I won't until after it's done. I'm forecasting what I see in the future, changes I see in the future. There are positive things. So, there you have it. Let me go back to my recap. We've been at it a while, haven't we? I warned you. I warned you. By the way, you can get a hold of me, 989-780-2071, 989-780-2071, Mark Torregrossa, meteorologist, 35 years, 1989. Have a home in Rotunda West, Cape Hayes Windward. You could also email me, mtorreger, mtorregr, at mlive.com. So here's my recap, my current guess. Okay. Rotunda West, Cape Hayes, at the current track, which I believe is going to work, or a smidgen north. And I believe the current forecasts address the current decline expected in the storm, and it could be a smidgen more decline. So Rotunda West, Cape Hayes, my neighborhood, my neighbors, Coke, Marty and Nancy Reesner, all the folks along my street. Some 70 to 90 mile per hour gusts, 3 to 5 inches of rain. We've had more rain than that on a weekend at times. Storm surge, probably dry. I do believe Cape Hayes, Windward, probably dry. The homes right on the canals, not sure how they lie. Just inland, Cape Hayes Drive specifically, probably dry. Inglewood, 70 to 90 mile an hour gusts, possibly 100-mile-per-hour gusts. If it's an overachiever, as we call it. Old Englewood, storm surge, devastation, I think we have to call it. To some degree, some blocks inward. No way around it. Manasota Key, devastation. Venice. You are in the zone where south side of Venice will probably have less damage than the north side of Venice. But you are probably 80 to 100 mile an hour gusts. Isolated 110. Storm surge is different at Venice because the shore ramps up. It's still a 10 to 15 foot storm surge, so it still does devastation where it gets inland. And then Sarasota, right in the heart of it, you're probably looking at 110 to 130 mile an hour gust times. And we gotta emphasize this. What did we have in Ian? So for comparison on winds, I just heard this, a great neighbor, I won't mention names. I talked to you this morning already on the phone. He said, well, I know we endured 200 mile an hour winds in Ian. No. 200 mile an hour wind is an EF5 tornado wind, and that's where you see the brick homes in Oklahoma wiped clean off the deck. We didn't have 200 mile an hour winds in Ian. Yet our neighborhood, Cape Hayes West, Cape Hayes Windward, we had 120 to 130 mile an hour gusts. I think it was 125. What do I base that on? Science. Coral Creek Airport, I talked to the airport manager that the wind gauge went out at 100 miles an hour. But then we retrieved some stuff and found a 125. So Sarasota at 110 to 130 will have the same kind of damage as what Rotunda West had from wind in Ian. Of course, storm surge totally different. There you go. Whew. We got through it. If you're still with me, it's grand to be Papa. 5. Well, we were called to dinner with our kids yesterday, daughter, son, and their husband and significant other. And I missed the first conversation because it was just subtle. Yeah, that's what we learned yesterday. Number 6 on the way. All right, folks. Meteorologist Mark Torregrossa, I will keep you updated. Pray for weakening. Pray for dry air at 700 millibars. And I guess if you want to pray for yourself, pray for the eye to shift a little bit north. Take care. I'll keep you updated.